Hello and welcome back to episode 8 of the Desert Moon Hockey Podcast. We finally figured out... What'd you say?
I like that a lot more than AC Sports with Matt and Rich.
Yeah, we finally got a name figured out. We finally got some merch that we're figuring out, or not merch, but branding. So we are finally on to a legitimate hockey podcast instead of just question marks up in the air. But anyways, on this show, we're going to be talking about a bunch of Coyotes news. Even though it's the off season, we still got so much to talk about. Let's just start with number one here, and that is because he's a Arizona native kid. We're going to talk about Auston Matthews and the Maple Laughs and their first round exit of this year's 2022 NHL playoffs, losing to the two-time Stanley Cup champions in the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that is going to be quite a talking point. But I'm going to finish up with my list of everything that we're going to be talking about today. So another one is that we have some fictional trades for Auston Matthews, because you know those fans are going to be overreacting, and we know that the Maple Leafs are going to be overreacting. So maybe we got some fictional trades for Auston Matthews. Come back home to the desert. Next up, we had a rumor spread from 32 Thoughts, a podcast up in Canada, where I think it was not Friedman, but Jeff Merrick, right? Merrick? Yeah, Jeff Merrick. He made a fictional trade of the Coyotes moving their third overall and next year's first for the first overall pick in Shane Wright. We'll talk a little bit about that. We also have the draft order finalized. The Coyotes are going to be picking third overall. We're going to be talking about prospects that'll be there at third, and maybe some more spice that is floating around with our Chicron trade debacle. We lastly have two last things. We have OEL and Garland on the trade block and seeing what's going to happen there in Canuckland. And, man, that trade is looking better and better by the day as you look at what they're going to be trying to trade those players for. And then lastly, we are going to talk a little bit more about the goalies. I think we talked about this in a short stint last week, but talking about all the goalies that are in the playoffs that were ex-Coyotes that are either moving on or have the chance to move on and are playing Game 7s here today. So that's all coming up shortly, but before we get into everything, I'd like to ask for a like, a follow, a subscription, wherever you're listening to this whatever you're listening to this on, whichever platform. If you could do that for us, that would really help us out, and especially with the rebranding, it's going to be quite exciting. We're really excited, so we're really happy, and we're looking forward to what's going to come. Of course, we start this podcast right into the off season, but that's okay. We're going to have tons of fun. We know that you're going to be thirsty for content, Coyotes fans, and let's just hop right into it. And with our first topic, we have drumroll, bum, 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 the Leafs crying as they mentally break down in Game 7, losing 2-1 to the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, Tampa Bay Lightning.
You know what?
It feels so good.
Before we get started, just real quick.
Yes.
Let me go ahead and virtue signal, because I have a couple of friends that are Leafs fans that aren't totally obnoxious. So if you're listening, feel free to just fast forward like 20 minutes or whatever, and we're not talking about you. As for the rest of you,
yes.
What happened? I thought it was their year this year. I thought this team was look. If you watch my little playoff bracket video, I was like,
yep.
I think they're finally going to win a playoff series. They're just going to choke in the second round. They couldn't even do that. They had a 3-2 series lead, and the fans are blaming the refs left and right. And as someone who had to suffer through 2012's playoffs, I do not care about your referees. The referees have been terrible for years, and you won't only complain when it affects you. So we're just going to that conversation does not exist here. I can acknowledge the officiating's bad. It's always bad. You only care when it affects you. So.
Yep.
that out of the way.
We witnessed Dustin Brown knee on knee. Who was that? Oh God,
Michael Roosevelt.
Roosevelt, that's right. Knee on knee, Michael Roosevelt. After the play is dead, on an offsides call, no penalty. Roosevelt's out of that series because Dustin Brown knee on kneed him. Very dangerous play.
And then to anyone that wants to justify it, I will give 1 inch. The play had just been blown offside. However, there was also primary contact. There was, I think, shoulder to chest. There was also some contact around the fist to neck area. I don't want to hear anything about, oh, it wasn't explicitly knee on knee. There was multiple points of contact where it was an illegal check. Stop it. Dustin Brown's a dirty player. Stop defending that. But back to Toronto, though. The team we're actually here to dunk on. So the Toronto Maple Loaves out here, you know, they have just one of the best forward cores, four forward cores out there, and just all this hype. They had Ilya Lyubushkin, the GOAT himself, and he just could not bail them out of the series.
Nope.
And you watched it more closely than I did. I just watched Twitter meltdowns repeatedly. So would you like to give some deep insight, some deep analysis, really get in there?
Oh, I mean, man, I don't know where to start. I mean, I do agree. So Game 7, I did watch a lot of Game 7. I watched like 6 and 7. I didn't really have time to watch the full series, but I watched the ending. I did watch all the highlights and stuff like that. It's once again those boogeyman that they cannot get past. That they, for some reason, the Leafs are they played themselves. They are their own worst enemy, and I do agree. So there was the controversial call of why they hate the refs. I do think there is merit there, but at the same time, you can't cry about that. Like how many periods do you have to score? Like, yeah, it sucks that you get a goal waved off and blown back because of a penalty. I don't know if you saw it, but essentially Justin Hall comes streaking in from the blue line and stops up right around the circles. And he stops, and he played a perfect. If you're playing in the NBA, he made a perfect pick and roll for John Tavares to cross back over the circles right into that danger, the high slot area, or the is it the slot or the top of the house? I just call it the top of the house. He goes right into that danger area and just picks. I think it's low corner, far side, and it's a perfect pick and roll if you're playing in the NBA. But unfortunately, the refs deem it interference, and Justin Hall goes off for interference as the puck is going into the net. It's rough. I do agree. That is a bad call. Because if you watch the play, Justin Hall stops up. If it's not interference in the NBA, why is it interference in hockey? Right? Justin Hall skates in, stops, uses his body as a screen, and as the Tampa Bay player comes in, collides with him, he's allowed to own that space. He's allowed to occupy that space. He stops. He has the right to stand there. And if you run into him, tough toenails. So I do agree. That is definitely a bad call. But at the same time, it's a 2-1 game. How much more do you need? This is supposed to be the high-powered flying offense that can do anything and everything, but yet they end up, failing to at least tie it back up or even defend. They had the game tied at 1-1, and they failed to keep that lead or keep that game tied, I should say. So I'm not like saying that the Leafs got screwed by the refs by any means. Game was tied. That is what it is. You failed to complete the comeback, I guess you'd say, being down 1-0. And man, is it fun watching tweets. Holy crap. I cannot talk. Leafs Twitter just absolutely explode right now. The amount of outrage, the amount of, all right, I'm done watching this team. It is hilarious to me because it's like that meme of oh God, what's his name? DeFranco something, where he's got the noose around his neck. And, first time question mark, like, welcome to Arizona, where we get dumped on constantly by you guys. LOL, they're gonna be playing in a college arena. LOL, we pay to make sure this team's still in float. Meanwhile, this team, which was owned by the league at one point, has still made a deeper playoff run than you guys in the past 20 years. That is embarrassing.
Actually, past decade.
Yeah. Our top first-line center for that deep run was Martin Hanzal. You guys have Auston Matthews, who is a 60 goal scorer, and you fail to get out of the first round 5 years consecutively.
Which is a record. In MLB, NBA, and NHL, they are the first team to lose 5 consecutive years of Game 7s in the first round of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. You guys are champions. You guys are absolutely phenomenal. And can I just say, as a fan of a fake franchise that needs to be relocated, hey, Steve Dangle, take this L, you asshole.
True.
Oh, seeing him like holding back tears like the big child that he is. You want to throw temper tantrums and throw shade at a smaller organization. Well, guess what? Enjoy the L and take it away, Richie, before I start getting us bleeped and blooped and all that.
I completely agree with you. I respect Steve Dangle for what he's carved out his niche. I completely respect that. I respect what he does being a Leafs fan. I get that bias, but when you're on your podcast and you're insulting the Coyotes and you're telling me that it's a much better arena solution to go to the Footprint Center. Why didn't they go to the Footprint Center? Why are they in ASU? That just shows to me how little you actually know about this market and that you need to stop talking about this market. I don't talk about what financial situations go on in Leafs land. I don't talk about how your tickets are outrageously priced in Leafs land because that's your own market. But I definitely demand the same respect when you come at my market talking about how the Leafs should be put in a building where the upper bowl can't even see a third of the rink. They can't even see a third because the lip is so bad on the rink or on the upper bowl. Like, don't talk to me about my market and the things that you clearly took maybe 10 minutes to read an article and don't actually know what's really going on here. So I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for him one bit because he deserves it. If you're going to not treat people with respect and you're going to banshee wail and, say like, LOL, this team's a joke, it's only ironic and comedic to see your team get killed in a Game 7. 5 consecutive years.
And just to kind of chip in, for those of you that actually do have the capacity to listen, you're kind of curious as to what we're talking about there, one of the main reasons the Coyotes jumped on the ability to go to Glendale was because the arena was going to be specifically designed for hockey. There are a couple of bad lip areas in Heel River Arena as well, but they are typically upper bowl, the very far sides of, I think it's the north and south ends of the arena, and it's only... Yeah. I think a total of like 50 to 100 seats that I've personally kind of sat around just to see what the actual viewing angles are. So that's much better than the situation was at Footprint Center. On top of that, the Footprint Center, they did not want them there. The Suns did not want to share any of the time with the Coyotes. Yep. And they already get so many concerts, different events. They got the Rattlers and Mercury also playing there. There are so many events going on there that they had the privilege to be able to be like, we don't want you here. So it wasn't a good arena match, and the people that run it don't want them there anyway. There wasn't much you could have done there. Yeah, and just to point out to the Footprint Arena, another thing too. I don't know if they put a scoreboard in the middle of the court. I don't think they did, but it's a massive one in the middle, like.
Oh, okay, there is.
Top, like a massive
okay, it's up top. When the Coyotes were there, and there was that lip problem. There was no scoreboard in the middle of that arena. the scoreboards were up on the end. So you're watching the play. You can't even use your peripherals to watch the play. You're watching the scoreboard like this. And you're pretty much, you're better off just going to a sports bar at that point. Like, it was bad. There's no way that they're going to be playing the football arena. And yeah, that's my rant for...
It was designed for basketball. It's also very good for indoor football. I'm never going to stop talking about the Rattlers. It's also very good for that, but it's primarily a basketball venue, and honestly, it makes sense. I was actually rooting for the Madhouse on McDowell. Like I've already told you, my brother-in-law was like, we don't want those nice drunk Canadians getting stabbed on the way out because it's not in a very good area. So it's either Chase Field, which I thought would be interesting, but probably would be stupid expensive, or ASU. And honestly, if you're going to get into bed with someone, if you're going to Tempe, you get into bed with ASU, which in my opinion is going to increase the likelihood that the deal goes through. It was a really smart decision in the long run. The problem is people don't see past 3 years.
Short term.
Because completely, and I've said it before, and not to go on too long, and I'll say it again, I'll reiterate it right now. If this was the Coyotes' plan for staying here, not, hey, we need a place to play for a couple of years and like while we're getting this arena built, if this was just their plan, nope, we're going to play in a 5K seat arena, I would be laughing at the pathetic excuse for whatever that is as well. But it's not their plan. It's, we need somewhere to play right now while we are working on the plan, while we are trying to get that plan finalized. And they've been putting work into this plan for at least a year, if not longer, depending on what reports you want to believe, and how Glendale was so desperate to get them to sign a 20-year lease. The same Glendale that knocked off the last 15-year lease, mind you. Had to just reiterate that because no one ever seems to remember that. Yeah, no, it's at the very least a year they've been trying to work out details. It makes sense. We need just for right now. So I don't want to hear the whole, you should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed if you genuinely think that this is just their plan and that's it. They're just going to play in ASU for forever or whatever.
And
it's
I'll let you in a little secret. Guess what? If Tempe rejects the deal, there's still tons of land around there. Do you really think they're not going to go to the natives who they have good standing with? Remember, they put in a name rights deal with the native community with Gila River Arena. Gila River is a native community. You don't think that they're going to go to the native communities and go, hey, you know that land that you've had vacant for hundreds of years? How about we put a brand new arena right there and make you guys a lot of money?
And also, they can bring that up in negotiations with Tempe because here's how you have to look at it from the perspective of Tempe. It's either you're going to get the traffic and get the money, or you're going to get the traffic and none of the money because obviously there are still certain things that Coyotes would have to pay tax-wise, but when you're dealing with native land, there are very, very different things you have to deal with because the government does not have jurisdiction over that. So it's literally, do you want the money or not? And especially with ASU already showing interest, I still got to make a video separate on that. I keep forgetting how ASU wants their basketball teams to play in the Coyotes' new arena. The second that came out, I'm like, dude, this is a done deal. They just need the vote to go through because if ASU is thinking that long term, we want to use this arena as well, you cannot tell me that the organization, institution, whatever, that owns the city of Tempe, obviously not legally, not like they run the government, but they own everything in the main downtown Tempe area. Yeah, no, it's done. It is 100% going to happen, and if it doesn't, we're going to have a very nice relationship. I think it's the Salt River Indian community that owns that land?
I believe so.
It's just down the road?
I was about to say, it is like a mile, maybe, down the freeway. You're talking maybe 3 stops from the freeway. You've got land to the north side I'm sure you guys have seen the mock-up of the building, and it's right on the lake. It's Tempe Town Lake. Now, granted, if you look at the mock-ups, there's water in front. There's not going to be water in front. There's a lock before that, and so it's going to be a dry creek. But maybe they end up blowing that out, extending the lake a little bit further on. Who knows? But for now, it's going to be a dry creek. Anyways, they are building on what is the southwest side of this river. The land that we're talking about is on the northeast side. You have a massive junction. You have the 202, which connects to the 101, So you have a freeway going this way and a freeway going that way, right? The 202 is on the north side of the river. On the other side of the 202, there's a massive flat field where the Phoenix Rising played for a period of time. That can be developed. On the other side of the freeway, so you have this crossing freeway, right? We have the 202, which is running parallel with the river. On the other side of the 101, there is just flat field for miles, and that is all native land. That is tons of native land, and you are talking about maybe a mile and a half from where they want to build it now.
It's not going to be the difference between Phoenix and Glendale. Just to really in case you're not following properly, just to knock that home, it's not the same concept. It's an additional 10 minutes, and that's being like pessimistic, whereas that's an extra hour and a half depending on traffic. It's
closer to the fans. If you want to be specific, most of the fans are in the east side Scottsdale area. It's closer that way. It's only closer for those people. Yeah, it is all from, like, even if Tempe fails to reach a vote or whatever, they kill it, which, why would they? It is a literal trash pit. That land is a literal compost trash pit. And you're telling me that you're not thinking about a $2 billion project that wants to sit right here and develop the majority of that, and all they're asking for is tax breaks? They're not even saying, hey, we need you to put money into this project. We're asking for tax breaks.
And no one else submitted any proposal for the land. So again, it genuinely comes down to, do you want the traffic and the money, or do you want the traffic and no money? Like, it has to come down to that, no matter how you're thinking about it. And the second the story changes and the Coyotes ask for tax money, I hope the city of Tempe rejects it. But as of right now, it's just breaks, which I still think is a little iffy, considering they don't have that much goodwill. So I will give a little bit of credence to the counter argument. But considering that's, as of that we can tell, is what they're asking for, I don't think that's unreasonable or something that is going to kill the deal. Could be wrong, but just as of right now, it doesn't seem like it would.
We're dragging this too far out. We're back to like I was talking about last week. We're back to the schizo posting. So let's get off the schizophrenia.
Fictional
topics.
trades. Let's talk about this fictional trade.
Fictional trades.
So we already know that it's a meme. It's a meme within the Coyotes community. It's also a meme just kind of trolling Toronto fans that there could be a huge shakeup because they just can't get over the hump. They have no cap space, which, yes, Mitch Marner, I know apparently you were crying about that, about how you're tired of losing. Well, maybe you shouldn't have demanded that 4 players take up 48% of your cap space, and then you have no space to get anyone else. I don't want to hear the arguments of, oh, well, they got to do what's best for them. If you want to win, you need to sacrifice the money. If you just want the money, you're going to have to sacrifice winning. You cannot have both in a cap-centric league. Which is also why they want to get rid of the actual hard cap, which is a terrible idea. It goes against small markets. But anyway. So
that's the whole reason of why they want to go to a luxury tax. It's literally to benefit only the big supermarkets. The
people that can afford it. Because Toronto, Montreal, they can afford it. Anyway, to not get off topic too much.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and propose just a couple of small trades. One, this is my personal mock-up. It's my favorite, actually. Pete, a guy who covers stuff on Twitter, also mentioned, John Tavares, number 1 center for the Coyotes, because they might want to kick the local kid out. They're not kicking their local boy out. They're going to kick our local boy back to us. It's going to be the Coyotes sending the 2022 third overall pick and Harry Sateri to Toronto for Auston Matthews. Do you like my trade there, buddy?
Oh, I think they'll love it. They really wanted Sateri. Sorry, I should say it right. I'm gonna correct you here. It's Sateri. I know it's a weird one, but yes, Sateri and a third. What do you think about that? That'll correct their cap. They get Logan Cooley. You go from your 60 goal scorer to a 80 goal scorer and Logan Cooley. What a nice trade for you guys, and you even get Sateri back.
You get another
even though he's a UFA. I don't care.
I like your trade. Your trade's also pretty fun.
Yes.
You want to tell him your trade?
For sure. So my fictional trade is we will give you one gently used Jacob Chicron for Auston Matthews. You go from an all-star center to an all-star defenseman. Our asking price is quite high at three first-round assets, but we'll make an exception. We will take Auston Matthews off your hands, and I think we'll call that a done deal. What do you think?
1 for 1, baby. I think, look, listen,
One
let's try to
for
benefit
one.
this. The amount of people that have been saying that defense has been a huge problem for Toronto for years, they also have been saying, even though they've been doing little things to fix the defense, and this year it wasn't as bad, you have to get younger, all right? I don't think Giordano is going to be there next year. I don't think you're going to have... well, Duncan Keith has one more year left on his deal, right? He's got another year? But he's also...
Keith is in
Edmonton. Excuse
Oiler.
me.
Yeah.
I misremembered. I apologize. But yeah, so Giordano, I think Hull is 30 or 31. Got a couple older guys, so why not go for Chick Norris?
I know the fans hate Hull. Yeah, I know the fans hate Hull. So even before that Game 7 penalty, they hated him. So I think he's probably gone. He's going to be gone in the way of, oh God, who's the guy who went to Carolina who was their whipping boy for the longest time? Jake something.
Is it Jake Gardner?
I think it's Jake Gardner.
That sounds correct.
He was their whipping boy for the longest time, and it turned into Hall this year.
So I'm just saying, you guys want to get younger. You guys need a little bit more scoring from the point, which is also a good idea. Morgan Riley and Jacob Chikrin as a pair doesn't at least interest you on a power play, or at least putting Chick on your power play? Look, listen, we need to get to the cap floor.
Yeah.
We're tired of having Chikrin on our injured reserve. He can be on your injured reserve.
Hey, you guys pay us anyways. You pay us anyways. Why don't we help you out here? We'll fix your cap situation. We'll help you out. We're gonna give you a Norris caliber defenseman in Jacob Chikrin, and we'll just take our hometown kid back. Pajama Sam is in Toronto. Bring our guy home. Danny Briere.
Throw in super glue for you, so that way you can keep his knees together.
True.
All right. On from that little bit of nonsense that I know is going to be one of the clips you're going to throw out separately. So I don't remember if it was specifically the 32 Thoughts podcast. It might have been. I was watching a video on it this morning. But there was, and this is not based off of any rumor. It is literally just, it wasn't Elliot Friedman. I forget the gentleman
Jeff
you
Merrick.
mentioned.
Jeff
So I believe he just threw it out there, essentially just because he chose violence that morning.
Yes, maximum chaos. I love his approach. I disagree with what he said, but I love his approach. Maximum chaos.
So the Coyotes, we could use a Shane Wright. I've already come to terms with this, getting Logan Cooley instead, or Slavkovsky. I can't say his name properly.
Slavkovsky.
Slavkovsky. I need to have names in front of me when I'm not used to saying them very much. Anyway,
Slavkovsky.
That all you want. You
That's
that
a good
all you
one.
want later. But I've already come to terms. We could use one of those players more in our current system right now. But for chaos, and I guess I kind of threw the idea out there. I'll take credit for this. I was like, oh, the Coyotes, if they don't get first overall, they have the assets to trade up. So it's the Coyotes getting this year's first overall in exchange for third overall, and the Coyotes next year's first round pick. Now, before you go off right now, I will say this. If you're down for taking the other 2 first round picks we have this year, I'll overpay and say, let's go for chaos. But the second you want to throw out next year's pick, I think it becomes one of the dumbest ideas possible. Again, I know it's not an actual rumor or anything, just an idea he threw out there.
Yeah.
But just put it into context, even though the Coyotes will never win a draft lottery, would I rather have a chance at Connor Bedard, or would I rather have just Shane Wright and no other top 10 assets? Because the Coyotes could still trade with their lower assets back into the top 10 and get 2 top 10 players if they really wanted to.
Yep. Yep. And if we talk about realistic trades here, if Jacob Chikrin gets traded, I know that LA was thrown out there a lot. Drew Doughty is starting to get older. He's starting to slow down. He's starting to run out. He's looking less and less like that number 1 guy, right? And as you see with them going to the playoffs this year, they're still hopeful. They want to rebuild. They want to get back in there. They want to be consistently in the playoffs. Jacob Chikrin is actually a pretty good trade for them. You take a little bit of a guy with what ifs, but has that potential to be a Norris caliber defenseman. He did get votes in that shortened season. He was spectacular in that shortened season. That could be a guy that we could we could see that being a landing spot for Chikrin. This year's first is going to be probably a sub-20 first after losing in the first round. So they'll be like 20 to 16, somewhere in there. It makes a lot of sense, man. Like, moving back to, let's say, 16 to 20 range and trading it around. As crazy as Jeff Merrick is, you know, you could also move that asset too. Let's say you take that first that you get from Chikrin from LA, that 16th or 18th or whatever. You take the third, you take maybe another first from the Colorado or Florida, or sorry, not Florida, Carolina deal, and maybe you package 3 firsts to move up 2 spots. Just a thought.
Now, gotta get to my correct page.
Maybe they like. Sorry, I was gonna say the other. Sorry, to finish this off, the other reason why this makes a little bit more sense for Montreal, before you go insane and say no way they're doing this. Maybe at third, Shane Wright is available. There's a center that they're desperate for. Maybe they like Shane Wright a little bit more. Or sorry, not Shane Wright. Logan Cooley. Maybe Logan Cooley is there at third. There's a center in Logan Cooley that you can still pick up.
Now, me and Richard and I decided to do a little consensus top 10 mock draft. So I'm just going to throw those out at you real quick. If you got any witty remarks, you can go for that. So our mock is as follows. Number 1, Shane Wright. Number 2, Uri Slavkovsky. Number 3, Logan Cooley. Nimic goes number 4. Kemmel goes number 5. Connor Geeky at 6. You said it's Savoy?
Yes.
Is that his name?
Matthew Savoy. Yep.
Matthew Savoy at 7. Cutter Gauthier at 8. Yurchek at 9. And your boy Nazar at number 10. That's just kind of our mock. I know you think Nazar is not gonna keep dropping. You thought he was gonna shoot up a little bit, but that would still be phenomenal value pick. Where I'm coming at this from is the Coyotes. They pick top 3. Even if we eliminate Montreal real quick, if they make that Chikrin trade on draft day, you get, let's just call it 18. You get your 18th pick, and I think Carolina's pick will be higher than Colorado's, even though I have Colorado getting eliminated in the second round. But you take whichever one is higher, and the Coyotes could realistically get back within the top 10. And depending on, there's one, Yurchek was the one you had your eye on that because of an injury might fall. They can get another defenseman. They can get up and try to get like a Geeky or a Gauthier, depending on how high they can get back up. It makes sense.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the reason why I think Yurchek's going to fall is that he received an injury at I believe it was the World Juniors tournament. I always mess up the tournament names. I just know it was the tournament in Europe. He received it in like the first period or second period of the first game. So I think that his stock will fall a little bit. I think that he is still a very nice, very, very nice defenseman. The other guy who is another defenseman is Simone Nimic. I think that Seattle would be crazy not to pick him at 4. I think that he's not going to be available. I have Nimic being the best defenseman in this draft. I think Yurchek is a great consolation prize.
So if you look at all of that, it makes perfect sense why the Coyotes, again, and just to put it even further into context, you might not believe this just by me saying it. If they trade those 2 first-round picks, including the one they would get in that hypothetical Chikrin trade, they'd still have 3 firsts this year. Just to put it into context, just how many assets this team has and just what they could do with it if they decide to. If they don't have a dance partner, then you know what? This is all just speculation. But if they can get some of this done, realistically speaking, they can get another top 8 prospect. We wanted to go top 10 just to kind of show you what we think. But worst case scenario, if Nazar keeps dropping, they could try to turn that 18 into 12 or 13, wherever they think Nazar is going to be, and go grab him there. Now, here's the reason why we seem so dismissive of first overall picks. We have a list from 2007 of the first overall, and I'm going to read it off, and then I'm going to hand the floor to Richard after every pick, and we're going to try to show you it's a more recent phenomenon that first overall picks are either taking longer to develop or I don't want to say misdrafted. I feel like that's a very salacious way to say it, but definitely
not reaching their potential, I think, is the best way to say it.
That's the best way to say it. So we'll start with...
Great asset, just doesn't reach their potential.
So 2007, we're going to start, since that would have been the first draft I was a fan for. Patrick Kane out of Chicago. Oh, hit. I think we can all agree there. 2008, Steven Stamkos. You know, I think he's had a fine career. I think back-to-back Stanley Cups, it's just fine. 2009, Toronto boy, John Tavares from New York. I'm going to call that a hit. He had his best years in New York, and I think he actually helped carry that franchise a lot. And then as soon as he left, they carried themselves. So how much did he actually carry them is what I'm thinking after that. 2010, Taylor Hall. I'm going to call that one a hit. But then again, you know I'm a lot higher on Hall than you are. I'm
still high on Hall. I like Hall. I think that he has regressed a little bit. He's not that, regular season MVP that he was in New Jersey. But I still like him as a first overall pick, and he was very serviceable in Edmonton. I remember he was very dangerous in Edmonton. I'd say that he's pretty safe in that draft. And, like, who else is in that draft? Maybe Tyler Seguin? It's like a 1A, 1B kind of thing. I think Hall was the right pick at first overall.
And so far, the only Coyotes player. It wasn't drafted by the Coyotes, but the only Coyotes player that was a first overall. 2011, sure. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Probably picked a little high, in my opinion. I'm not looking at the rest of the draft when I say that, but he's a very serviceable... Is he their third-line anchor or their second-line center?
I think he's their third. I don't know, though. Like, that team is such a mystery to me because technically, if you were ideal, you'd have McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins down the middle, and then you'd actually put good players on the wings, but they don't do that. They put McDavid and Draisaitl together and just go maximum offense.
Split them, they put them back, and they split them, and they put them back.
Yeah, but ideally, Nugent-Hopkins would be a third-line center, but for a first overall pick, like, that is rough. Like, I'm just gonna name a guy two picks below that. Jonathan Huberdeau.
Just saying, gun to your head. All right, let's just say it's a penalty shot. Game 7, game is tied. Who do you want taking that shot? Nuge or Huberdeau?
Huberdeau.
The fact there wasn't even a thought there. I know it's a really weird thing to bring up, but I'm just talking about, like, that first overall pick to me should be at least an elite player, if not franchise level player, and then if you're really lucky, a generational talent. But those only come around a couple times every generation. Sid the Kid, Ovechkin. Yes, Richard.
I have a brain blast. Ready for this?
Yes, got you.
Right, Nugent-Hopkins, center. Right, not as skilled, but very good. Nugent-Hopkins. First overall pick, Shane Wright. Not as skilled, but very good. Third in this 2011 draft, Jonathan Huberdeau. Very skilled, very fast. Not as big. Third overall pick, potentially, Logan Cooley. Not as big, but very fast, very skilled. Do we see history repeat itself here?
I'm just saying. Because if anyone with a brain saw that clip, maybe that gives them enough time to, like, just stop in their boots for a second. Anyway, 2012, Nail Yakupov. Nothing against the guy. That's not a hit.
Womp womp.
Nathan McKinnon, 2013.
Hold on. Before, I have a bone to pick. Nail Yakupov. Bye. I'm glad you're gone. When you wanted to score an OT winner in Game 4 of your rookie season and you go sliding back down the ice like you're freaking, I want to say a football player, but a soccer player, and you're sliding down our ice, yeah, get out of here. I saw that game. He wasn't as ridiculous in the previous game, but he did it again in our arena. Screw you.
Nathan McKinnon, 2013. I can hate Colorado all I want. This is a unanimous. That's a good one.
Oh yeah.
2014. This is not meant to be a hot take. All right, Aaron Ekblad. I still like. I think we agree he's not first overall material, but he's still a very, very, very good player.
He's good. The problem is that he could never stay healthy, and he still can't stay healthy. It's a big shame to see because I am a big fan of Ekblad, but he is not a first overall pick. When you talk about who's taken at number 3, a little guy named Leon Draisaitl. Yeah. Now, granted, there's a lot to say with Draisaitl playing with talent with McDavid. But at the same time, you had already drafted Sasha Barkov. Could you imagine Sasha Barkov with the big physical body of Leon Draisaitl?
The next 2 years, 2015, 2016, Mick Jesus and Auston Matthews, we have no complaints there. So
yes.
I think up to this point, you had what? Ekblad, we don't think was first overall material, but very good. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, not first overall material, but very good. Yakupov, bust. Out of the first, that's damn near 10 players we've mentioned, 7 of them have hit. 7 of those, really good.
Yep.
Now we get into the modern phenomenon, 2017 on. Nico Hischier in 2017. I think he's a very good player.
Not first. Not a first overall pick.
Not first overall. Also, it didn't take him a couple of years to finally, almost everyone else on this list that hit, and even Ekblad, he was immediately good. Hischier, didn't it take him a couple of years to really kind of get his stride?
Yes, it took Hischier quite a few strides, and on top of that, I don't know if he's ever going to realize that potential that he had going into that draft. I'm glad New Jersey took Hischier over Nolan Patrick. That was a big red flag that everybody saw because Nolan Patrick was projected to go first. But as that draft got closer, it was flipping back and forth because Nolan Patrick could not stay healthy, and he still cannot stay healthy. So good on New Jersey to take the better asset of those two that the census was saying. But even still, you got names like Elias Pettersson in Vancouver. You got, I don't know, this little kid named Cale Makar at 4. You got Nick Suzuki in that draft. Robert Thomas was a late one at 20th, right? And a little guy that I'm high on, I love this kid a lot, and that is Jason Robertson of Dallas, taking the second round pick.
So, just to kind of show you right there, while it was a smarter pick, I could definitely see Makar being, if you had to redraft, I might be leaning Makar first overall if I had that chance. Yeah. Next year, 2018, Rasmus Dahlin at Buffalo. Can we just call that one?
That's hard. That's so hard. So it is younger. So let's wait a couple of years, right, before we start labeling stuff. But man, Svechnikov is looking real good. You have Quintinius Hughes out there, who,
stud.
As much knock as he gets defensively, he can put up points offensively. Kachuk's out there too, and in that draft, yeah, that is one of those ones where I'll wait and see because defensemen take longer to develop than offensemen. So, Rasmus Dahlin being a defenseman, but that's looking a little bit like the Ekblad year, where you look at this kid, he doesn't have a health problem like Ekblad, but he just could never expand on what that projection and that expectation was.
Just to break in here real quick, he's number 2 of the only 3 defensemen we're going to talk about today. Pretty much don't take defensemen first overall. That's all I'm going to say. Not as a knock on defensemen, but like you said, just like with goalies, it takes them longer to develop. And on top of that, I feel like defensemen have a higher likelihood of busting out because it's such a massive role they have to fill. And you get in one of their heads, something with a goalie, they start letting in bad goals, start turning the puck over badly, whatever, you could really derail a career, I think, pretty quickly. Next up, Jack Hughes, 2019. I think he's good. Very good.
Unreal numbers in the U.S. development program. Unreal. I think he had a 2 points a game record. He was up there in top 5 of all-time points per game in the USDP. I don't know. He looked better this year, but man, it has been a slow grind for Jack Hughes to become that all-star, that superstar that you want at first overall.
Like I said, I still think he's very good, but yeah, I feel like first overall, like almost everyone else we talked about before 2017, near immediately, if not immediately, made an impact. I feel like Jack Hughes didn't do that his first year. I think he had I'm going to say good first year, but my expectations for prospects apparently is so much different than everyone else's expectation. Dylan Strome, just to throw that one out there. So, like, I kind of get that. 2020, Alexis Lafreniere going to New York.
See, this is a problem. I don't know if Alexis Lafreniere is a bust. He has not looked good in the Rangers system. Timmy Stützle has looked really good in Ottawa. I really like Stützle's game. That's a rough one because this has been a franchise time and time again that has been constantly yelled at for failing to develop players in New York Rangers. They constantly fail to develop. And is it a failure in the system or is it a failure in the player? I don't know. I liked Lafreniere going into that draft. He was from the QMJHL, which is a little bit of a red flag to me because the QMJHL is all offense. They play zero defense. So those numbers can be skewed pretty badly in the QMJHL, so you got to take them with a grain of salt in their draft year. But, man, he's a big body. He's got that NHL presence that you want to see. He just has not put up the points that you'd expect from a first overall pick.
And then finally, last year, Owen Power, who, I'm going to go ahead and close the book, literally closing the book here.
Yep.
He's going back to college. From what I can tell, he had a very good first college year, or not first college year this season, excuse me. It's way too early to tell for him. Even for Lafreniere, it's still a little too early to say if he is a bust, but when you're talking about first overall pick, you want, realistically, within the first couple of years, you to be an elevating type player. And I think that is at least fair to look at the organization for. So I think Owen Power, it's literally too early to tell. He hasn't even had his rookie season in the NHL yet. But as for everyone else, I feel like you're seeing the last 5 years, guys are either taking a lot longer or they're being misidentified or misdrafted, I guess. You had a better term, but I'm just going to use that to try to convey the specific point I'm trying to make. Maybe a little overvalued. Guys, like I said, taking longer. We might, in 5 years, look at this and as Coyotes fans be happy that Shane Wright wasn't drafted by us. We also could be Coyotes fans like the McJesus year or the Auston Matthews year and think we really wish we could have got this guy. Now, but because it's becoming more and more muddied as time's going on, and I have no idea if it has to do, not blaming advanced analytics. I don't know if it has to do with people paying a little more attention to certain advanced stats in leagues that it wouldn't be appropriate for, or overvaluing certain ones over this, or ignoring it for the eye test, when in my opinion there needs to be a combination of everything when assessing a player, because if you can see them struggling in a lot of these situations but their advanced stats look good, it's like, well, I already know where you're going to struggle and you can make a better assessment there. It's all useful tools. Now, I have no idea if it's because we're in the advanced stats era, but we're getting to the first overall pick is simply not a given, and it's never been a given. But for a few years there, by that I mean close to a decade, it was almost a given you were going to get your franchise player at first overall. And now I like Jack Hughes. I don't know if he's New Jersey's franchise. He might be. I'm not saying he's not going to be. But the fact that it took him a year or so, Lafreniere probably is not going to be New York's franchise player. Could be. I don't think he ends up being. Dahlin could be Buffalo's franchise player. I don't think he does. Same thing with Hischier. Not to drone on too long. It's just we might look back on this and be happy. Could be.
Yeah, it could go both. It could go two ways. It could be the Nugent Hopkins Huberdeau draft, or it could be the Connor McDavid Dylan Strome draft for the Coyotes. That was a great pickup there. But with that being said, did I have confidence in John Chayka at the time? Yes. In hindsight, should I have? No. He put himself with a bunch of people who were kind of in a fake it till you make it mode. Whereas, where is Bill Armstrong now? I am extremely confident. It is not him trying to sell me on a vision like John Chaika was. He is like, this is my vision. This is what I'm doing. Not just let me sell this to you. I like what he's put himself around in the office type situation. There's a great stat that I think he said on PHNX, or maybe it was the crew on PHNX who said this, but all the guys he's put around him, 4 of them have picked first overall. So that tells you, how he's been able to poach people who know what the hell they're doing and who have been there before, versus nobodies that are taking massive pay cuts because they're just getting into it, right? It's like in the talks of engineering, do you want the kid just coming out of school, or do you want the veteran who's been in it for a very long time and knows what the hell to do, right?
And also, the kid coming out of school could be that next veteran that knows what he's doing.
Could be.
The problem is it also, just to briefly talk basketball, I guess, for a second, it's the same thing with like Jalen Smith this year in the Suns. Sometimes you just need, we're in win now mode, we need a veteran. Sometimes it's, we're in rebuilding mode, we need young players like the Coyotes right now, getting McBain, Smith, very, in my opinion, very smart moves. Hey, we can get these young kids in here, give them ice time. Let's see what we can do with them. It depends on where you're at with your franchise. And my biggest problem with Chaika, he was starting to win me over late. I hated what he did to Donor, but I know that also came from ownership. Allegedly, what he allegedly did to Donor.
We know that came from ownership. Yeah, he Barroway publicly went onto the NHL Network to apologize to Shane Doan for what he had done. So we know that came from ownership.
That man needs to be nowhere near a hockey team. Anyway, just if I was mad at Vegas for what they did to Fleury, I wasn't gonna go to hockey games again after what they did to Shane Doan. You don't do that to your franchise. But anyway, so how he just kind of bought out Vermette and just threw him away, even though he was one of our best face-off guys at that time. Why not keep him around for the extra year? The little things he was doing, what he did to Z, how he just planted him in the minors for his last year, even though you cannot look at that roster. I think it was 16-17, might have been the year before. You cannot look at that roster and tell me that there was 6 better defensemen on it than Zbigniew McCulloch. He was starting to lose it a little bit. I'm not going to pretend he was an all-star at that point, but yeah, no, that's just disrespect in my opinion. But he started making smart trades. Now, let me put a huge asterisk here. Theoretically smart trades. Getting Alex Goligoski, I thought that was a pretty good value for the pick they used. They gave him way too much money they gave him too much term. Let me correct that. They gave him too much term. If it would have ended 2 years sooner, that would have been a great contract. Bringing in Derek Stepan, great idea. You needed a bigger center, or at least a higher, priority center. He was never a number 1 center. It didn't really make that much sense. You were just trying to upgrade. Hjalmarsson, great guy to bring in. Shouldn't have gave him number 4. But you see, these trades on the surface look good, or they were good, and then they kind of deteriorate over time. The Taylor Hall trade I thought was phenomenal because I really wanted this team to take a step and go into the playoffs. And they ended up making the playoffs that year. Yeah. I really wanted them to take that step, and to me it showed that they were trying to add legitimacy. The biggest problem is hindsight's 2020, and as much as I loved that core, Garland, Dvorak, Keller, he was finally starting to kind of hit his stride around that time, all those guys. The problem is they weren't ready to make the step. They did not have the right coaching. They had a lot of good prospects. They didn't have the right guys developing them so that way they can slot in when you need to replace guys. I think as much as I love Grabner and I love Brad Richardson, Richie, he needed to go when he went maybe a year earlier. I know you might have different opinions, but that's just the way I see it. And Grabs, that really sucks that he didn't finish out the contract here and they ended up buying him out. But, the moves that end up going bad, essentially, you look at those and it's like, okay, now that we have the full picture, was it good at the time? Okay, I can see what you're going for here. I think it was pretty good. How did it turn out? Okay, next question. Why did it turn out that way? And for the Taylor Hall trade, even though I don't think any of those players involved are going to be like big NHLers, you gave up a lot of assets for a guy that was here for 25 games, a little bit more. Yeah,
that's a trade you make if you're like the Tampa Bay Lightning or you're the Pittsburgh Penguins. People that have been there. This is a team that has never been there. You don't make a trade like that. Now, am I saying that that the value is right and things like that were correct? Yeah, it was about fair. It was what you'd expect, but you don't make that trade if your team has not proved it. And they were proving it in the regular season. So at the time, I say this always, they were first place in the Pacific Division. And it wasn't just for like a couple days. That was for multiple weeks. They were in first place. And that's why he made that trade for Taylor Hall to shore up the offense. In theory, that trade is not bad. But you don't make a trade like that until your team has made at least out of the first round.
Same thing with the Kessel trade. The Kessel trade should have been great. The problem was his first year, that first training camp, dude was flying around. But the problem with a guy like Kessel is he's an Iron Man. So if he's hurt and he's not 100%, he's going to play anyway, and it's going to hurt your team. There was how many games they had to play him on the fourth line because he could barely skate, but you had to keep the Iron Man streak going. So you essentially, and this is not meant to be like, I hate Phil Kessel. I don't like what he stands for, but I do not hate Phil Kessel the person. But when you look at that, it's like you're literally saying, I do not care that we are playing with 3.5 lines right now. We need to make sure you are out there.
I like Phil Kessel. I like the way he plays as a player, the way he acts as a player. I think that's pretty good camaraderie. Like the way, he's a very shy, kind of mellow guy. The biggest problem was that Iron Man streak, and still is that Iron Man streak. I think it's going to be very challenging for him to get actually a contract for a real contender for him to go play with next season, because they will not have the ability to scratch him until he breaks that record, or potentially, I'm assuming once he hits like the 1,000 game mark for his Iron Man streak, he'll be willing to be scratched or whatever. But yeah, that Iron Man streak has been the biggest anchor for him recently. And why he couldn't get traded at the deadline.
Mm-hmm. Literally, it wasn't exactly stated that was the reason, but we all know that was one of the reasons. It was also a lot of teams couldn't fit it under the cap. A lot of teams didn't really agree with the value they wanted, which is why they ended up jumping on that Johan Larsson trade, because you wanted to still get that asset. And it's just, Kessel injured the first year, had a great shortened season, and then this year, yes. He was racking up assists. He was racking up points. A very good playmaker throughout the year. He lost almost all of his goal-scoring touch, and that tanked his value because people are not acquiring Philip Joseph Kessel for 8 goals and 58 assists. They are acquiring him for 20 to 25 goals, and who cares how many assists they want him to score. Mm-hmm. So it made it really hard to move on. And again, nothing against Phil Kessel the person, but I think that's the most interesting thing about trades and looking back at GMs and everything. It's, you have to look, did it make sense at the time? Do you think it was a good trade? And then, how did it turn out? You ask why, you try to break down. And the more I try to break these down, I still have to finish the video on it. I think John Chayka was a wolf in sheep's clothing where, hey, on paper, he should have been a very good up-and-coming GM. In actuality, it died the facade died pretty quickly, and my biggest concern with Bill Armstrong was the fact that Marullo really wanted Chayka here and heavily valued Chayka. I don't know if he had the proverbial post clarity. I really hope he did when he hired Armstrong, and it seems like he had that clarity afterwards. But the comments at the time, I'm like, even I was starting to kind of, my veil was coming off, and I'm like, was he actually that good, or did he just look like he was that good?
So I think Chayka really sold him on the opportunity that Murillo had here. Mm-hmm. I think what ended up happening, because I think it was, he moved recently to like the Northeast area. Is it Richard Morin? I can't remember.
Rich Norin? Is it
Norin? Maybe.
Is it?
He was a smaller writer here. But he's the one, I believe, who broke the story about how there was dysfunction in the front office, and specifically, John Chayka was trying to call all the shots, and Murillo was like pushing against some of those ideas. So I think that they started clashing inside the office, and I think that's when you saw the shift from "this is my guy" to "okay, something's wrong here." And I completely think that was the case, because we also saw a lot of Reddit posts that came out post Chayka and like all the staff that was in there and how toxic that workplace was, and why when Bill Armstrong came in, he cut almost everything out. He cut the cancer out. There's a guy, 99.9 The Howl, 99.6 The Howl. He has a YouTube channel. He actually, on his channel, has the video of him reading out this Reddit post of somebody who actually worked under John Chayka as a, like, not an intern, but sort of like a professional scout, and like just how terrible it was under Chayka's staff and how much of a shit show it was in that office. And it seems a lot healthier to me. There's a reason why Doan didn't want to associate with this front office, or with that front office, but now he's willing to associate with this front office. I think that we've seen a course correction for how cancerous the Chayka administration was, and how, like you were talking about, wolf in sheep's clothing it was.
So it sucks because I was starting to like the guy, all right? And I have no problem admitting that. If you're wrong in life, you're wrong in life. It's better to just be an adult and admit it and move on. And with the benefit of hindsight, all those trades that, as a fan, as a doe-eyed fan that just wants my team to finally see some success, looked great, ended up leading to more ruin. And now we're where we're at now, where, yeah, in 5 years, I have no problem saying this team should be a cup contender if they get the right people in prospect development, because that is so important. We've banged on about it too much. I'm not going to do it too much here, but it's so important. You get the right people there. They're really trying to build this culture down in Tucson as well. There's a lot of injuries, a lot of movement there, so I understand kind of why this year was as bad as it was. But if you can keep working on that, in 5 years, this should be a model organization in a brand new arena that's 2 years old, making the playoffs and making it to the second, third round, and being like, this team is on the up and up. Who are they going to sacrifice to get what veteran to bring them in to be that final piece? Who's going to be their Ray Whitney?
Well, Bill Armstrong, you can tell he's not going to do what Chayka's going to do. So remember, Chayka, we're going to retool and we're going to go for it. Why are you making trades to get rid of your 7th overall pick for Derek Stepan and Antti Ranta? Right? You're rebuilding. Why are you making that trade? Why are you making the Taylor Hall trade, to get rid of Dawson Mercer? That's the guy who was taken with that first. And Kevin Ball and
I think it was Nate
Merkley.
Schnarr.
Merkley and Schnarr, yeah. I think it was Merkley. I don't remember. The two end pieces on those filler pieces never really amounted to anything. That trade really is Taylor Hall for Kevin Ball and Dawson Mercer. I think that's pretty much what we're going to see that trade becoming. But why do you trade those two assets when you're still rebuilding? You're still trying to get there. And that is something that I don't think we're going to be seeing from Bill Armstrong. I'm going to pull us back in, though, real quick here. Not real quick, but let's transition back. We teased our trade with LA in talking about that 18th overall pick. I want to quickly talk a little bit about how we'd obtain that asset for Chicron. So the package that we were toying with here was Chicron, the 18th overall pick, and then the other one being one of the assets. As my face lights up because I'm going to look. We were talking about Alex Turcotte is probably an asset that they might part ways with because he has not been able to crack the lineup. If I'm trying to get the maximum amount out of this trade, I would love to try to steal Brandt Clark from them. I don't think that happens, but that's a guy who I really like. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about this? Or
I just wanted to talk about Turcotte, where the biggest thing behind the Smith trades, behind the McBain trades, McBain chose Arizona over Minnesota, I believe, because he didn't want to have to compete for what essentially would have been limited minutes anyway. If you go to Arizona, we have those minutes available because we can eat up dead contracts to get us to the floor. Theoretically, we can have a team that's average age is like 22 next year. Theoretically, it does not mean that will happen, but theoretically you could have that. And if you have Turcotte with McBain, I don't care who's on the right side, some things could happen there. What's the worst case scenario? Chicron, and we already talked about it, he does not want to be here anymore. He's not. He's at least not being a canter about it. He's being very nice. He's not dissing the market. But you could tell, you read between the lines, you understand corporate politics. Talked about it last week. He wants out of Arizona, and that's fine, so long as we're getting something back we could use. And if we can finagle around with that first round pick and kind of trade around, see what we can do. But you get Turcotte, he benefits us right now, because worst case scenario, Chicron didn't want to be here anyway. We at least tried to bring in a good young forward. He doesn't work out. Maybe you re-sign him, you flip him for like a third round pick, you get something for him, or you just let him go. Or you can have those project trades where guys that are about the age of Capobianco, the 25-year-olds that are either trying to really break that roster or they're kind of stalling out. You just swap them around. Sometimes change of scenery works too, and those end up being really underrated trades. At the very least, you're getting yourself more usable assets, and I think that would be really smart. But speaking about assets, speaking about
underrated trades. Underrated trades. Let's talk about it.
Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Ollie boy.
Goeal. Goal. I don't know what I just spelled there.
I thought you were going for O Canada, then you said O goal, but anyway. So
I don't know.
OEL is allegedly back on the trade block. So is Conor Garland, also allegedly. That's been going on for the entire year because Vancouver. I have no ill will against Vancouver. If a Vancouver fan starts talking trash, maybe I'll start the ill will. But as of right now, I don't. The fact that they gave us the glory of King Louis and a couple other trash pieces that all are expiring that we can have those roster spots for later, and they're stuck trying to deal with our garbage former captain. Great before he was a captain. As soon as he became the captain, a couple of years before that, I think he started really going downhill defensively. Just so you know my opinions on that. And Conor Garland, who was our best goal scorer, phenomenal player, they get him for a year. They're like, oh wait, we still have cap hell. Let's try to move on immediately from these guys. And the cope that I was seeing some draft day tweets resurface. Dylan Guenther will never be Conor Garland. I love Conor Garland. Theoretically, he was going to be a very good replacement for Conor Garland. You're going to have Guenther and Doan both being Garland-esque players with more size that were going to provide more depth scoring for the Coyotes in the future. Good trade. Dylan Guenther has been phenomenal so far this year in Edmonton, and I think in the playoffs as well. Also, I didn't know this before, they had him playing some center too, meaning he probably could come in as a center, or you can throw him on either side of the wing. You can throw him with McBain. You can throw him... If you want to try McBain, Keller, and Guenther, hell, have at it. Just throw it out there, have a little bit of fun. What's the worst case scenario? Oh, we got to break this lineup 10 games in. Who cares? Let's have some fun with it. The fact that the kind of assets we have right now, and those assets we traded are essentially not worth less, but worth less than the asset we got back for them.
Yeah, that trade is looking better and better by the day. That is really unfortunate because I was a lot closer than some people. Some people were like, oh, this is awful. This is terrible. There were also Canadians, like, lol, thanks for taking on the shit contracts. We'll take OEL and Garland off your hands. And the Coyotes are just a prospect pipeline that just creates prospects for NHLers for the NHL.
Basically they're the AHL NHL team. Like they're just
constant insults like that. And
OEL, the first pairing defenseman. He's going to be so great. At one point, Capobianco had the same amount of points in like 10 less games than OEL, playing more limited minutes. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I had to throw that in there just because it's funny.
Just don't lie to me. It's because you love your Capobiancos.
Yes, the answer is yes, and it's both, and it's all of it. Please return my phone calls.
I was shocked at how little production they actually got out of OEL. I thought he was going to have a bounce back season. So my prediction was, I thought he was going to have a bounce back season. He was going to maybe have like 2 more good seasons. He was going to be really solid and maybe bounce back to the 40, 50 point guy. And then it would start to tail off significantly from there. I am shocked at how little he was able to produce in Vancouver. And now you hear the rumors in the offseason that they want to get out from under that contract, and good luck. There's a reason we traded that out, because nobody wants to take on $7 million for a guy who is at the best, a second-line guy.
And
at the best.
Allegedly, he was one of their better defenders, which it's great. Finally, OEL's turning it around defensively. That I know I'm sounding sarcastic. That's actually genuinely a good thing. I do want to give him credit for that. Here's the problem. At least when he sucked defensively here, he could still put the puck in the net. He wasn't doing that much in Vancouver, and Garland, they got 18 out of him or 17 goals. He was sub 20, and as much as I love Conor Garland, and I genuinely wanted him to get like national respect, he didn't perform well enough to get that national respect, because you're in a Canadian market. You need to score 20-25 goals to get anything more than Canuck fan admiration, which it's good that Canuck fans love him. More eyes on Conor Garland, the better, legitimately. But the fact that they're already, allegedly, one more time, I'll just say it, just to cover our butts, allegedly looking to move on from these guys 1 year later, when all three of those contracts, including our glorious, I hope he comes back, King Louis, would have also expired after that year. Were they that desperate to try to make the playoffs and then fail anyway? Like, I don't get it. It didn't make sense at the time. Shannon, the hockey guy, was saying it didn't make sense. None of the Canadian fans agreed it made sense, except for the ones that were like, yeah, we're going to the playoffs, and OEL's going to be he's a number one defenseman, and we all know he's a number one defenseman. He hasn't been that for like 7 years. Look, Coyotes fans, as much as they love him, also agree he was not a good captain, and defensively he had fallen off for... They agree at least the last couple of years is what I'm kind of getting the consensus at, but it started years before that, and good offensive numbers on a bad team can only mask that so much. And if you would like us to take OEL back, it's only going to cost you one Conor Garland and maybe a date with Elias Pettersson. You know, just let him come in for the training camp. Let him teach Jack McBain a couple of things, and then
imagine that you trade away Conor Garland and OEL for effectively Dylan Guenther. Let's be honest. Like, the other three assets are just dumps. You trade away OEL and Garland for Dylan Guenther, and then you trade them back for nothing. Like, you just thank you for the thank you for Dylan Guenther.
You know what? You can have Ghost. If you give me Conor Garland back, I'll eat OEL's contract, and you can have Ghost. Does that sound fair? That sound like fair value?
No. I have an OEL jersey, and I don't want OEL back. I'm sorry, not sorry. His very clearly the injuries that he sustained from trying to be the guy who played 30 minutes a night clearly became burnt out, and he is not the same player that he was going into 2012 playoffs, where he looked like a stud as a rookie.
I think I have 3 OEL jerseys. They were cheap. If you keep them on discount, I'll buy as many of them because, oh, hey, I got a bit of a burrito on this jersey. I can just burn it. I have 3 more OEL jerseys in the back. It's fine. These things are like tissue paper in Arizona.
Well, speaking of tissue paper, let's talk about the goalies.
Gonna say Auntie Ronto.
That are
talk about some glass knees that actually stood up for some reason.
I'm talking about all the tissue paper of our goalie carousel here in Arizona, and how a bunch of them are going or potentially going to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We currently have 3 goalies who were previously Coyotes moving on, and tonight we will find out if it is between 3 to 5. Some of those names include Scott Wedgwood, who was traded for a 4th that became a 3rd because Dallas made the playoffs. You've got one Louis Domingue, who is battling for his life with the Pittsburgh Penguins against the Rangers to move on as well.
Pittsburgh's going to win that game. They're going to win Game 7.
Hopefully. We have, who else is there? Antti Ranta, who has been pretty good for Carolina. He's been very serviceable there.
The I'm glad we sent along with him. Actually, they used it to keep his knees together. So
Yes.
Good on him. I'm just glad he's not playing here because he couldn't play more than like 12 games a year.
I loved him. Great guy, great goalie. Could not stay healthy. Another goalie is Michael Smith.
We're not
Mike
talking
Smith.
about him. We're moving on.
He is finally in his real hockey market in Edmonton with real hockey fans, and he's moving on to the second round after defeating Jonathan Quick again. Or not defeating him again, but finally beating Jonathan Quick in the playoffs.
Or was that 2012 jerkbag?
Yeah. Yeah, you tell him. Who else is the last goaltender I'm missing?
Oh, why is it slipping my mind, too? It's actually better if we just talk the team. Because obviously we talked about Pittsburgh, we talked about Dallas, Edmonton, Carolina.
Oh, Darcy Kemper. What am I thinking?
Oh,
Darcy.
You mean Vezina? Vezina winning?
Yeah,
Not actually
Mr.
winning,
Vezina.
Darcy Kemper himself.
Yes, Darcy Kemper.
I still got a bit of a bone to pick with him after he vocally said, "I will not re-sign here. You idiot! We could have tried to squeeze Newhook out of him." That's
True.
mad.
But we did get in a bidding
Nothing
war,
against him.
which brought up the price. We got him into a bidding war and brought up the price. Apparently, the bidding war was between the Oilers and Colorado was willing to pay the highest price. But with that being said, I love that guy. He wins my NHL Good Guy Award every single year. Talk about a guy like there are a lot of different quirky goalies just in general in the sport. You know, whether you're playing beer league or you're playing in the NHL, there's like different types of goalies. You got weird ones. You got ones that will flame your team for defensively breaking down. And then you got Darcy Kemper, who goes, "Oh, shucks, guys, I let it in. We messed up. Let's get back out there and win this game." Just always happy, just always in a good mood. Doesn't matter if you completely screw him over. He doesn't blame it on people. He says, "I could have had it. Oh, I could have done something here." You know, just good guy award. Love that guy.
Love that guy. But
love that guy.
The 2020 playoffs broke that man in Arizona, though, because look, I still, to this day, I do not care how many people want to rewrite history. It was freaking impressive how much that defense was able to shut down Colorado for the first, 50 some odd minutes of, I think it was game 1, 2, and 3, and then it was floodgates every game after that. The last two, excuse me. But how impressive it was, how Darcy Kemper stood on his head. But then when the goals came in, when it rains, it pours. I felt so bad for that guy because he was like smacking his stick. Like, again, nothing against him personally. He's a jerkwad for saying he's not going to re-sign, so he couldn't get Newhook. But I mean, as a person, nothing against him. Loved him as a player, but like they broke that man. I felt so bad for Darcy Kemper after that because I'm like he gave it. He gave his all. The rest of the team offensively didn't give anything. The defense, I think, not stood on their head, but they definitely withstood a lot of blows. But Darcy Kemper stood on his freaking head, and that was a painful series to watch him like break down after that. And then the really not like terrible 2021, but it was he was definitely not the same Darcy Kemper that ends up getting traded off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely was dropping his stock in 2021. The only thing that brought it back was actually his tournament play. What was it, the World Cup of Hockey or whatever it was, where he played really, really well for Canada, and I think he won gold. That's what really brought his stock capital back up.
But we're not here to talk positively about Canada. We're here to collect Maple Leaf tears. That's what it's really all about.
True.
This is Arizona, boys.
The sweetest kind of tears, Maple Leaf tears. Man, those are some rich tears. Although they started to become more and more abundant, so the taste is not so sweet anymore. But I still enjoy them from time to time.
It's not even about the taste anymore. It's about the fact that we're in a drought. We actually have been storing Maple Leaf tears for the last 5 or so years. We actually have enough water to, if we don't get rain for the next decade. We have enough Maple Leaf tears to get us through.
True.
Oh, that was stupid. I regret nothing, but that was stupid.
All right, are we good to call it? You think?
I think we're good to call it, and we only were off by 20 minutes. We only added 20 minutes of the runtime.
We were so close, but then we started looping back into the arena talk, and that's where that's where all that runtime came from.
TLDR, us turning this into a podcast, or a hockey-focused podcast, was both the smartest thing we could have ever done and the dumbest idea we've ever had, because it could be the smallest question, and because of how, like, well, Richie's not, he's successful, whatever, but, like, we're both kind of losers in the aspect where it's like we have so much knowledge on this franchise that we will just go and, like, the Energizer Bunny and just keep going, and it's been 6 hours, and my wife's like, please, I would like to go eat dinner now.
Yep, that's pretty accurate. Anyways, I say let's call it there. Another great, successful show here on the Desert Moon Hockey Podcast. And we are now into month number 2 of consistent uploads. So, very fun. Very fun. Gotta take the small victories.
We're Arizona
Anyways,
fans. We take any victory we can get.
True. Anyways, I would like to remind you all that whatever you're listening to this on, whether it's YouTube or any other podcast platform, please give us a like, follow, subscription, anything like that. We are a small little channel that is blossoming into a great saguaro cactus because it is here in the desert. And anyways, thanks for listening to us ramble and talk about Coyotes for an hour and 20 minutes. So thank you so much. We'll see you later.